Howdy and welcome to the show. The Raspberry Pi 2 portable that I've been working on, I've finished it. And yeah, I thought I'd take you through what I've actually done, although it did not turn out as expected. I've changed a couple of things as I've gone through, and yeah, time is always a killer, so I've had to change the approach as well. But let's have a look at what I've got through. So as you can see, it's more like a book than anything else. Right. It pretty much just comes through as a book, plastic at the back. This is actually just a card, just a thick cardboard, switch, keyboard, screen, and LED indicator for the battery supply here, and the actual Raspberry Pi 2 poking out the side there, and the power connection on the bottom. So yeah, and the buttons on the top, across the top there, is for the remote control. So the remote control is functional. That's a feature of the driver board that I picked up that's running inside here. So yeah, apart from that, so everything works as expected. Don't like the screen. Once you adjust it, the settings are pretty good on the screen, but ultimately it's 800 by 480 resolution, and it's just not quite enough to run a graphical OS on. It's not too bad for things like running terminal sessions. Right, it's all right for that, but ultimately not perfect for anything else. Even web browsing, 1024 by 600 would be a much better screen resolution. But that's a lesson learned. I can change the screen. There's another 7-inch version with a higher resolution available. So just on-off switch, basic keyboard recessed into the front of the device. Don't particularly like the way this turned out either. That being slightly protruding from the surface is actually better. And yeah, I wouldn't repeat that. I'd have it recessed. I'd have it coming just over the top and just protruding a little bit. Also, for general use, it's about the size of an iPad, realistically, in a case. And the thumb board is quite okay for that kind of use, but still not perfect. It's a little bit too wide around here, so I'd probably look for a slightly larger keyboard or try and thin the device down in a different way to make your hand holding come as close as possible to the edges. So around the sides there isn't much to see. On the back it's just plastic, so all of the actual bits are inside and still accessible. I made it more like a book, and it's just taped down because I didn't want to permanently affix anything, because it's a work in progress. The driver board, as we've already seen, the power distribution we've already spoken about, none of that's changed. The Raspberry Pi, again, just taped in here at the moment, removable and reusable. And the battery, the standard little 3.7 volt lithium battery there. I've actually changed that battery from this one. This has got a smaller capacity, so this only runs for about an hour, 50-55 minutes. So this was the battery previous. This is a 2 amp hour battery, and I nicked it ever so slightly with a Stanley knife. And as you can possibly see, right, have a look at that there. There is a change in thickness from this edge to this edge. This has started to swell. There's a lump down in this bottom corner here. Obviously there was no fire or anything else, but I'll be disposing of that battery. I can't trust it. So yeah, if you do get lithium batteries and they start to swell, you need to get rid of them. Pretty much the same as what we've covered off on before. All temporary, so I can pull it apart. But that's what I ended up with, this book-styled approach. And yeah, it came out okay. The lessons learned are actually more in taking the time to design around the parts that you want to use for your project, and using probably a layering technique. If you really want to do fast prototyping, I'd actually recommend a layering technique using foam board. So this is the kind of foam board that I've actually used, just a medium density foam board, quill brand, about 5mm thick. So you can actually layer up, cut one piece, remove the sections that you don't want, sit your parts in that, then put another layer on top, remove the sections you don't want, and you build it up like a sandwich in layers. And that's what I did with this, and it is significantly faster than working with wood, but it is not as firm as working with wood. So a prototype in that kind of approach won't last all that long, as opposed to something done in wood. But in order to be able to actually get it together and get an idea of what works, what doesn't work, ergonomics, design characteristics and so on, using a foam approach and slapping it together like that, absolutely fantastic and quick. One thing to note, although you really only need a Stanley knife of sorts, box cutter, in order to be able to cut your foam and assemble it that way, hot glue and a knife is pretty much all you need. The problems are that if you're really concerned with the final aesthetics, you're not going to get millimetre accuracy. The slightest movement of the knife, the sandwiching of the layers, there's always a tiny little bit that does not line up, and as a result of that, it doesn't look all of that fantastic. It doesn't look terrific. Your eye focuses on millimetre and sub-millimetre and 1 degree and sub-1 degree variances, and it really detracts from your final product. Okay, so if you wanted to do something like that, as a prototype, and whether you're going to take your time and make a nice case and do it out of wood or some other material that's a bit more robust than just foam and board, what's this going to cost you? Well, if you take into consideration the external plug pack, if you haven't got one of those and you need to buy them, it does add up. So for this particular project, the LCD and the driver board, around $60 delivered. The Bluetooth keyboard, around $20, that was off eBay. The case itself and case materials, probably around about $10 in this case. The Raspberry Pi itself with memory card, somewhere around $60. You've also got to take into account, if you want to run Wi-Fi, you'll need a Wi-Fi dongle, so there's probably another $15 to $20. And on the inside of the actual project, the Pololu power regulator, which has been fantastic and invaluable, they're around about $18. And if you haven't already got yourself a lithium battery, you're probably talking a starting price of about $20 for a lithium battery, and you'll need a charging module for the lithium battery, so another $15. And then you've got little bits and pieces, wiring, other components if you decide to use them, HDMI cable in this case. So it all adds up. So you're probably talking a grand total price of somewhere around $20 for the plug pack, somewhere around about $220. So is it really worth it? I would say it is, because I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed the process of putting this together, and the lessons learned, the layering approach, fantastic. Working with wood, a better result, but a lot slower. And I'll probably use this and what I've learnt from this and do another one. So thanks very much for joining me and watching the show. Subscribers are always welcome, so feel free to subscribe, that would be great. And I hope you'll join me again next week.